Alright, welcome everybody to a brand new day of Computer Science 1. We're going to talk a little bit today about social media, Facebook. They've been in the news a lot recently, so it's fairly topical. Out of curiosity, like what percentage of y'all use social media? And if so, which social media networks do you use? Let's do a quick informal poll on the channel here. Twitter, its Discord count? Not really. I don't know. Suppose it does. Pinterest, YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. YouTube. So, it seems like YouTube is maybe the most common one here. What do you think of the comment section in YouTube? So, somebody puts up a video, people comment on it. What do you think? What do you think of YouTube comments? Depends on the video. Okay. Explain. When are the comments good on YouTube? When are they bad? YouTube comments suck. I don't look at them. A variety of intellectual levels. That's a good way of putting it. So, I never look, to be honest. Yeah, it's. Do you think they're better now than they used to be? That's actually a question. Do you think that YouTube comments are better now than they used to be? How did they used to be? I don't know. I don't want to poison the well. You tell me. Not since you showed me. I think that really depends on the channel that you're on. They seem to be better. Some YouTube comments are like Twitter. Others are good if they're like on music videos. Yeah, a lot of times that's very true. Like you go to a music video and they're almost always positive, it seems, right? Like I'll just see what they recommend. It's going to have some music video on here. I'm sure. There we go. Music videos. All right, let's click on some Amon Amarth. And what do we got here? These are the most brutal lyrics. Honestly, it sounds like an actual Viking wrote them. Earlier albums aren't as polished, so there you go. So there's a negative comment, kind of. But they had some of the best songs, so it's not really negative. Remaster 1,000 Years of Oppression. That will be brutal. Discovered these guys when I started forging with an army vet. Every time I forged knives, I play Amon Amarth. The world hear these words once more. Save us, O Lord, from the wraths of the Norsemen. Okay. Just the right thing to wake up on a Friday morning. Brutal as hell. 20 years, still epic. Yeah, so... music videos, I found, the fans post on there and seem to be fairly positive, I listen to the song, I grew a beard, it's pretty common. Legitimate videos get the worst comments. 12-year-olds like to tell you how they know everything and prove you wrong using fallacies to support the claims. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Huge fight in the comment section about a Paper Mario soundtrack. That's hilarious. Big dumb. So, you're a poopy head type of arguments. Yeah, exactly. A lot of those too. And so I think whoever said it depends on the comment or the video. I think there's a certain amount of truth to that. Anything political is going to be garbage. or at least it used to be. Let's see what kind of political thing we've searched for. Let's see, somebody just won Virginia governor race. Yeah, that was yesterday, right? So, Fox News and CNN. Let's see if there's any difference here.
Democrats in Virginia feeling very
Let's see. Let's go Brandon. Let's go Brandon. Saying we have great schools in Virginia as he sent his kids to private schools. Youngkin. So these are all Republicans. Let's go Brandon. Let's Youngkin. Trump. Youngkin. Yeah. So all of these people are Republican, I guess. It's almost like people don't want nonsensical left-wing nut jobs. Let's go Brandon. Okay. So let's look at CNN.
welcome back to state.
All right. Interesting. Nope, these are also Republican comments. Not what I would have expected on a CNN channel. Huh. Okay. When are the Democrats going to realize that I'm Not Trump is the most uninspiring platform they can run on? Let's go Brandon. Yeah, so... Okay. Critical race theory is the foundation. Yeah, I think somebody on the chat channel talked about critical race theory last night. It's probably something worth talking about, especially since we talked about racism last week. So the problem with critical race theory is that the left and the right use it to mean different things. And so this is again one of those debates in which people just talk right past each other, and they mean different things when they use the same terms. So it's not very productive to use the term because people use it in different ways. So Democrats, and I'm basing this on a lecture at this Duke University. I did this thing at Duke University last semester, and the guy put critical race theory like this, especially with the 1619 Project, which is kind of the focal point for this, which he phrased it like this. He said, we all know 1492, we all know 1776. And so Hannah Jones, the founder of the 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah Jones, she said, why don't we put another date in between 1492 and 1776, tell you about when slaves were brought to America. Let's, raise attention on, black Americans and black topics and things like that. And if you put it that way, like, it's pretty reasonable. Like, I think if you have been paying any attention at all, what I've been saying is, like, I believe very heavily in teaching nuance and complexity, and to the left, the critical race theory thing basically means teaching the forgotten history of America. The things that kind of get swept under the rug and neglected, like redlining, for example. Redlining was a practice in which banks wouldn't loan money to people based on the neighborhood, which turned out to be racist, right? Because people have, it's not a uniform distribution, right? And so even here in Fresno, you can see areas that were redlined where they wouldn't loan money to you and things like that, which allowed more white people to get into houses and less black people to get into houses. And you can see the different zone, the exclusionary zones and things like that. And this was all outlawed by the one of the housing acts, and so yeah, it's like, it's fairly unobjectionable to say, we should teach, the actual history of America. It's not controversial at all. And then on the right, critical race theory means teaching all white people are evil. the segregating kids into white and black, and teaching them separately, and segregation is not generally considered a good idea in America. To like segregate people on race, and some of the critical race theory, workshop givers will do that, and so they mean very different things to people on different sides of the political spectrum. So it's kind of like, it's better to just focus on individual acts, like where, if somebody says, you're a racist unless you give me money, then you're like, that sounds to me like you're just kind of a con person, man or woman. Okay, so 500 comments on a comment with less likes. Yeah, Pinterest is interesting. I use it sometimes when thinking about remodeling my house, and like, oh, that's a neat idea for a new kitchen, things like that. So all I need is your credit card number, 3 digits in the back, and then you're no longer a racist. Yeah, exactly. So it's it's almost not productive to talk about it as a term, critical race theory. It's better to be like, all right, what are we talking about? Are we talking about teaching the neglected parts of history? Like the right. It's like Hidden Figures was a movie that came out 5 years ago about black women that were part of the space program. Right? And so NASA has renamed one of their streets Hidden Figures Drive or something like that, right? I don't know anybody that objects to teaching, neglected parts of history, But at the same time, I don't know very many people at all that support segregation and support, sort of, being able to pay money to people to be not called racist. Like, okay. So that's my take on that. All right. So Facebook's been in the news a lot recently. There was a whistleblower that, was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, at this point testified in front of Congress, saying that Facebook had done a bunch of internal studies on the impact of Facebook. And Facebook owns Instagram, right? So those of you who use Instagram, it's Facebook also. And they had found that there's a wide variety of negative impacts of Facebook. And the whistleblower had been working on sort of the election safety team, and as soon as the election was over, they removed a lot of the processes they put in place for safety. And the general gist of what the whistleblower said was that Mark Zuckerberg's number one concern is growth of Facebook, and that's been I've read lots of stories from inside of Facebook, and that's basically has always been his concern. It's like, how can we get more people into Facebook? He wants the entire world to be on Facebook, because that's his goal. And so if they were to, and if you're on Facebook, spend more time on Facebook, right? And so what he would do is, he would do A/B testing. Are you guys familiar with the concept of A/B testing, like the letter A, the letter B, A/B testing? It's almost, it's about money, but it's almost too simplistic to say it's about money, because money and having users is not the same thing, right? He actually wants to have as many users as possible due to the network effect. The more people that are on your social media network, whatever it is, the more it pulls in as well. So all my friends are on, Insta, so I have to be on Insta. There's this network effect that creates kind of a snowballing effect. So A/B testing is when, let's say you're gonna push out a change to Facebook. So rather than sorting the news feed chronologically, which is what it used to be, it'll sort it based on an algorithm that puts the most interesting it thinks to you at the top. And so what you do is, instead of just pushing it out to everybody, what you do is you divide the users into group A, group B. And you try your change on group A, you leave it the same on group B, and you actually run both versions at the same time, and people don't know which version they're getting. They just go onto the site, they use the site, and what you do is you average this across, there's like 1 billion people on Facebook, you average it across 500 million people for group A, 500 million people for group B, and you see which one has more engagement. Engagement is the big thing that Facebook's always looking for, which is how much time people spend scrolling on Facebook and typing to people and stuff like that. And so every time they roll out a change, they see which one gets more engagement. They keep A or B. Which one did better? We'll do this one. And so over time, Facebook developed a set of techniques that would cause more people to come into Facebook. And it wasn't, again, about money exactly. They found that, maybe if they turn down the number of ads, they get more people into Facebook, right? And so Mark Zuckerberg would just kind of sit there on his throne, so, metaphorically speaking. I don't know if he has an actual throne. I'd be surprised. But, he would, like they described it as, there was just a dial, and he would just turn the dial up or down to get more users. Like, I want more teenagers in Korea, and then you turn that dial up and get more teenagers in Korea. Oh, I want more, 40 to 60-year-old white women in Arizona. Turn that dial up, right? So, what is kind of cringe? Bitten? So, bending things for your will, yeah. But that general notion of A/B testing is something that you should all probably be aware of, because, like, let's say you go to work for a company someday and they're like, we're going to try out a new packaging system for, sending out our books or whatever we make. Rather than just switching over everything at once, what you can do is you can do A/B testing and switch 10% of your books over to the new packaging system and see if you get an uptick in customer complaints. My book came in damaged, or not. In which case you're like, all right, let's use the new system. It's cheaper and we're not getting any more complaints. So, and so you A/B test very, very, very commonly in the real world. Okay. So, yeah. So again, it's not quite exactly about money, because eventually, though, down the line, the notion is to make money, right? Like, if you have 1 billion people in your social network, obviously you're going to make quite a lot of money advertising to them and stuff like that. And then Facebook allowed customized advertising, right? And this was something we talked about during the Racism Week last week, where they were allowing apartment complexes to advertise apartments to people based on, racial, single status, having kids, things like that, which is against the Fair Housing Act, right? So, 1968. That's the year I was thinking of. Okay. So yeah, redlining and things like that have been illegal for 50 years or so. And that's another thing that I have issue with the critical race theory thing, is that there's some people that say you can't give any evidence to support racism getting better in America. And that sets me off, because the one thing that I think we should all do as critical thinkers is base our beliefs on evidence, right? And if they're like, no, you can't show evidence that, like, how I show those graphs of, like, the attitudes, like, back in the day, multiracial marriages like my own would be considered, very bad, right? Like 5-10% of people support it, and then over the years it's gone up to 90, so high they don't poll for it anymore, Can't talk about that, It might give people the idea there's no racism in America. It's like, people are aware there's still racism in America, but if you're telling me I can't present facts and talk about facts, I'm going to have an issue with that, so. Are an algorithm's biased, and it is biased based on biased people? Yeah, so the algorithm that they talk about, and this is true for YouTube as well. A lot of you said you use YouTube. Is the algorithm is designed to get you to spend more time on the system. That's the algorithm. And so the reason why it's controversial is that what the algorithm discovered, because again, you A/B test all this kind of stuff, is that when you put people in contact with people whose political views are opposed to your own, let's say, then people say, that's not true. And then, like, oh, yes, it is. Oh, F you, F you. And then that's engagement, you know? And so you get into arguments with people of opposite political beliefs, and they start flaming each other. And, you know, once somebody flames you, oh, you're a moron, you know? You can't just let that drop, you know? And then it creates engagement, and people are sitting there screaming at each other and stuff like that. And according to the algorithm, good job. Good job, algorithm. Yes, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted more people spending time on Facebook. Oh, did the person respond to me? You know, go on there, you know. And that's what the algorithm is looking for. It's trying to find the people that you engage with most, and that doesn't mean people you like a lot of the times. A lot of the times it means people that you don't get along with. And you start arguing with them and stuff like that. So, and then YouTube's algorithm, of course, suggests you get to the end of a video, then it suggests another video for you to watch. And again, it's trying to figure out what will keep you on YouTube the longest. You know, for me, what I found was the algorithm didn't work very well. At least because I listen to a lot of Irish music, and no matter where you start, what Irish music video you start with, it always ends up with Sinead O'Connor's Foggy Dew song with the Chieftains. And I do not like that version of the Foggy Dew. The Dubliners version is much, much better. And so, like, you start over here, like, I'm going to listen to Whiskey in the Jar, and then it goes suggestion, 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 Sinead O'Connor and the Chieftains, the Foggy Dew. It's like, oh, you know, and I always have to go over and close out of it. So, YouTube's algorithm doesn't always work well. But that's the point of it. The point of it is to be suggesting things that will result in you spending more time on the website, having more engagement with their site, because that's what they're looking at. That's the metric they're looking at, is the amount of time you spend on the website, with the notion that money will come from that, right? The more people you have on a network, the more valuable the network is. And in fact, the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of people. Think about how pointless a social media network with like 100 people on it would be. Right? Because there's a lot of social media networks out there. And most of them just don't have any users on them. You've never heard of them. Why is our generation not into Facebook? It's interesting. Yeah, Facebook has a reputation for being like, for people of my age, I'm in my 40s now, and it's like an old person, you know, thing. Whereas Insta, which is owned by Facebook, is considered more of a young person thing. I don't know why. Like, you can basically cross-post both of them, and, you know, watching some slap bass, and next thing you know, you're watching animal documentaries. Yeah, it is interesting. Usually, though, like when I play music, it sticks with music. But yeah, the big issue with YouTube is that they were alleging that you would start watching political videos, and it would put you into these extremist, like, terrorist videos and things like that. I've never once seen it. I've had YouTube suggest some weird stuff to me, where all of a sudden, I don't know, like, I'm getting clips of, like, Joe Rogan, you know, recommending a carnivore diet or something with Joe Peterson, or what was his name? Jordan Peterson. You know, like, all of a sudden I was like, where did this come from, you know? But I've never seen myself, you know, YouTube pushing me into extremist content or things like that. So I don't know what extent it's just people sort of exaggerating the threat or not. True crime or conspiracy theories, yeah, and that's true. Like, if you start probably watching conspiracy theories, it's like, oh, you must like Alex Jones, you know, and kind of send you down that route and stuff like that. The other day, you saw something interesting that shouldn't have been suggested to you. What was it? So, yeah. So when people complain about the algorithm, it's this. They have these, you know, it's a computer science program that tries to figure out what will engage with you most. It doesn't try and figure out what's good for you. It doesn't try and figure out what's good for society. It tries to figure out what will keep you on the website. And that's kind of the big debate going on in our society right now, is to like what extent these social media companies, if any, have towards, you know, the effect they have on society. So watching one video now constantly spams you. Yeah. So it's always interesting to me because there's 3 people on my account, you know, myself, my wife, and my kid. And so whenever YouTube does this, we've got Dave Chappelle. Now, you know, because I just clicked on those that Fox News video, now Fox is right here on my top 8. I was listening to bass guitar covers last week because you were asking for a bass solo, and so now I've got that on here. I don't know why GQ is on here. I've been listening to a lot of Enka music. I do listen to Amon Amarth, and I do play Europa Universalis. I don't think I've listened to Dave Chappelle on here. Like, it's interesting because, like, I'm, like, not interested, and then here we go, game development. I watched this guy's videos, like, 2 years ago, or a year ago, yeah, probably last summer, I think. And he keeps popping up. It's kind of interesting what, I don't even know what this is. Shui Yuan. Sure. What is that thing? Tinchan. It's Ichigawa in Japanese, at least. Yeah, I don't even know why it's recommending that to me. Why Tesla? It sounds like an advertisement. I don't know. But it is interesting to me what it recommends. Okay. ASMR. Yeah. Imagine your kid seeing this being recommended to them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The I don't know. I don't really get the whole ASMR thing. Although some people tell me my voice can be used for ASMR for some reason. I don't know what that means. I guess that means I can put students to sleep with my voice. What? Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I tried watching a few videos and it's just like a person who had like one of those plastic combs and they're going... I'm just sitting there like... popping bubble wrap, and I'm like, I don't know, something's supposed to be happening. So, yeah. Next thing you know, your kid is going to perform a guitar solo. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like my kids watch plenty of guitar solos. Like she finally discovered Metallica 2 or 3 days ago, and I put on Enter Sandman, and she's like, "What is this? Why have you not played the song for me before?" And so she was listening to Enter Sandman on loop last night, which made me a very proud father, you know. And it's not like because she watched Enter Sandman, she's now playing the electric guitar or anything like that. So I think to a certain extent we sort of overstate how much these things influence us. But yeah. So anyhow, so the left especially has been interested in blaming Facebook and YouTube because of the riots on January 6th, right, in New York. Wow. In Washington, D.C. So they're looking for someone to blame, right? And obviously they blame Trump for everything, but they're interested in blaming Facebook and YouTube for creating the environment that resulted in the Stop the Steal group on Facebook going to Washington, D.C. on January 6th and rioting. It's just like watching people play video games. What's the point? Yeah, thank you. I always feel like one of those old men screaming at the clouds, you know, because it's like I'd rather play video games than watch them. I'm sorry, like it's just not interesting for me to watch people play video games. The exception being like if somebody has like some, like if they're like demonstrating like this is where you find the magic flower or something, and I can't find it, then I'll pull it up and. Oh, I see. It's under the box. Okay. You know, but like just watching people play video games, like I just play the video game. Like I don't know. Like maybe if you can't afford it or something, like I guess. But what about pros playing them? Yeah, I guess like watching a pro play Call of Duty, it's like, okay, look, they shot the guy. I don't know. Doesn't have interest me. Yeah. Okay. So, big question. Do you think that Facebook is good for the world or bad for the world? Net. If they shut down Facebook, like what happened right after the whistleblower went to Congress, the next day Facebook went down, right? Do you think if Facebook shut down, it would be good for the world or bad for the world? If you want strategies to pick up, or and that's true. Like the Ludi at Historia guy, he shows like different strategies for Europa Universalis, and but it's not like I'm just watching him play. Europa instead, he's like, all right, here's a good start for the Ottoman Empire, whatever. So what do you guys think? Is Facebook net good? Like if Congress is just like, Facebook, you're out of business tomorrow, will the world become a better place or a worse place? Let's put it that way. So now you've got, the question of government shutting down a company too, or regulating a company. Because that's what they're talking about, right? It's like, they want Congress to pass laws that will regulate social media, which in and of itself is worrisome, right? It's like, you're going to give control, like, you're going to take it from Mark Zuckerberg and give it to Congress? Like, is that in any way a good idea? Yeah. You think it'd be good for the political world? Twitter ending would be much, much better. A worse place, not because of the fact it was shut down, because it sets a precedent for the government to do that. Yeah. I think that's quite a large concern. Like, a lot of countries around the world are like, we don't like what you're saying on social media, shut down. And there's protests against their government, shut it down. And that's a very troubling thing. Like, when you allow countries to censor the internet, that's troublesome. It's very troublesome. I don't even know at this point, social media has lots in its roots. Initially it was for communication, now it's turned into heisty comment section threads. Social media hurts because it is the standard for pretty much everything, including politics, beauty standards, moral standards. They're all done by whoever decides to talk about it. Yeah. But like, if you shut it down, then what? Like back in my day, there were these things called magazines. And so teenage girls that, my friends, they'd go to the grocery store and you'd see these magazines by the checkout counter, and they'd pick one up and they'd flip through it and they'd look at makeup designs and, they'd have pictures of people like in a summer dress and a hat, and the thing would have a little caption on it saying the hat is by so-and-so, costs $80, the dress is by so-and-so, costs $500, and they would sort of go through these things and figure out what look they wanted, then go to the store and purchase them. And I don't know if that's better or worse than Facebook. I honestly can't make that. I'm not being like a professor here, being neutral. Like, I honestly don't know if that's better, because if you're talking about unrealistic beauty standards, basing your look on, models and things like that is probably not as realistic as social media, where at least it's other people, right? At least in theory. On Instagram, of course, you have the Instagram influencers and things like that aren't, very realistic either. What about the people on YouTube that make edits being shocked about all the likes they get? People have less social interaction in person with phones. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's always sad when you see a bunch of friends sitting together and they're just all doing this. They're not talking to each other. It's kind of sad. I don't know. So, but then again, when I was in high school, I'd bring a book to dinner and read. So, I don't know. What if they're gaming together? then they're not scrolling, right? This is the social media action. If they're gaming, they're doing this, and that's fine in my book. They're all sitting there doing that on their phone. Okay, this, I don't know, go home. You know, you can do that at home. Yeah. Social media is good for seeing someone who they really are. That's an interesting question. That's actually a really interesting question, because what a lot of the research says is that social media is actually bad for a certain fraction of people. A certain fraction of people actually will develop depression and anxiety and things like that from social media, because they look at what people post on social media and they think that that's what the person's life is actually like. But in reality, people post on social media typically the good stuff, right? Like, hey, I'm in Mexico right now. I'm going to post a bunch of shots from my beautiful hotel in Puerto Vallarta or Acapulco or something, and Chihuataneo, you know, and they're like, oh man, look at my life. It's so terrible. I'm not in Mexico. You know, I'm not petting dolphins or whatever, you know. And then they look at another friend and, hey, I'm in Hawaii right now. And they're like, oh man. You know, and so for a certain fraction of people who think that their life, it makes their life feel less good because they're seeing kind of the best parts of all of their friends' lives, you know, going out trick-or-treating with the kids, you know, and they don't see, you know, the kid throwing a fit and, you know, smashing the chocolate into the carpet and stuff like that. That doesn't go onto Facebook, you know. Only the good stuff. Like, oh man, my kid's super grumpy and look at all these perfect kids my friends have on Facebook, you know. No, like, see, I think it's important to keep in a certain perspective when dealing with social media, that it's like a press release, you know. It's like what we talked about with Blizzard, saying we're going to continue our commitment to be the top most wonderful company in America and stuff. So start posting the bad stuff. Dog died. Yeah, people will do that. Like if their dog dies, they'll typically post a photo, like, I miss you, buddy, you know, and they post a photo and stuff like that. That does happen. Or if they go to the hospital, they'll post that sometimes. But in general, like, people aren't like, oh, I had really bad diarrhea today. Bloop, tweet. You know, like, man, it was really, you guys want to hear about this? It was like a water fountain, except upside down, you know, like the like yeah, like that just doesn't make it onto social media. And so yeah, have you ever seen the fountain in front of the museum? It was like that, except the other way. Yeah, like I'd give a heart for that. That's funny. I had a friend who only posted about his Nikes. Yeah, that would drive me crazy too. So yeah, so I think that is important for people to keep in mind, is that, you know, don't, in general, it's good advice just not to compare your life against other people's. The one of the best advice you can do is to compare yourself to how you were yesterday. Compare yourself to how you were a year ago. Always be working on improving yourself. Always be working on self-improvement. You know, my Japanese was garbage a year ago, and it's slightly better now. So yay, go me. Whereas if I were to compare my Japanese to, like, my friend, I play video games a lot with a friend of mine in Tokyo. His Japanese is much better than mine, you know. And if I was like, oh man, he's just so much better than me, you know, like I you know, maybe I'd quit or something, you know. But that's not, comparing yourself with other people is usually like a losing proposition, because they're going to be better than you at something, and you're going to be better than them at something, you know. So it's usually better just to compare yourself and, like, am I making personal growth towards something? I mean this quite seriously. Like, just always be working on yourself. Always be reading. Always be, like, if you discover weakness in yourself. Like for me, my worst subject in school is languages, foreign languages, and that's why, like, I push myself to study Mandarin and Japanese and things like that. It's because I'm bad at it, you know, and so it's, you know, that's my take on it. So, yeah, all right. So we'll probably do a discussion section on social media. We can talk about these things. It's part of an assignment. What is this? What is that, Saveda? No, class isn't over yet. We got some minutes left. All right. So basically, the reason why all these services are free is because if it costs money, people wouldn't use it. And their goal is to get as many users as possible. Gmail is free. Google Docs is free. The reason for this is because they harvest your information and sell your information. That's really the product is you, right? People say if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And that's not true. That's not true because sometimes you pay for the product, like Microsoft Windows, and Microsoft Windows has been jumping on board the selling, advertising by harvesting people's personal information gravy train. So sometimes you pay for the product and you're still the product. Yeah, you get a double duty. So yeah, if you ever wonder why, because Gmail costs a lot of money to run. They got to make their money back somehow. What they're doing is they're reading your emails, and they're using the emails that you send and you receive to advertise to you. So if you send a lot of emails on Gmail about, making an almond butter sandwich, Google puts together a profile about you, and they will advertise to you, oh, there's this new almond butter product, And Google Docs, you put up all of your Word documents, your spreadsheets into Google Docs. They harvest all that information as well, and they use it to advertise to you. If you use Google Maps to navigate, they know where you've been, and you can turn that off. You can turn off your location history, or you can turn off your location history after 30 days or something like that. But basically, they know what businesses you've been to. On Facebook, Facebook has basically the same thing, and Facebook knows where you are if you have the app installed on your phone. And a lot of times, you can't get rid of the app, and that's something that bugs me. That's actually something that really sets me off. Is like, let's say that I don't want to have Facebook on my phone. They make a deal with the carrier, you can't uninstall it, and it takes oftentimes heroic efforts. Like you have to root your phone to get Facebook off of it, or you can like freeze the app but not actually uninstall it. Oh yeah, that was me at the. That was back when I was president. That was a tough day. So let's see if we can find advertising. Let's see. That's Kurt. He's a photography instructor. Let's see. Come on, suggest people. Okay, so people I may know. Might have deleted some of the people off of here, but it was suggesting my gardener, and it was suggesting this guy came to my house a year ago to replumb my house, and it suggested he become my friend. Now, Facebook knew this because he was physically at my house, and I was at my house at the same time, and Facebook's like, you guys were in close proximity to each other for a couple days, maybe you should friend him. So think about that for a second. So Facebook is paying attention to your physical location and suggesting you become friends with somebody who's doing contracting work on your house. Just think about that level of intrusiveness, Told you Prime Kearney was an absolute beast. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah. That was a long time ago. So, yeah. And so, like, if you're just around people, like, I went to Czechoslovakia, or, Czech Republic, and it's suggesting all these Czech people become my friends. Trust me, like, that social network is, like, not connected at all. But it's like, you're just near these people, and you're in a dense city center, so it's like you're in the same apartment complex, and it just starts suggesting all of these people be my friend. So, yeah, it's because they're ad delivery agents. They harvest your personal information to try to sell you stuff, or not you. They sell other companies your information so that they can sell you stuff. Okay. Google had an amazing amount of money this last year due to the pandemic. People are sitting home. Online advertising went through the roof. So there's a famous story about a woman who started getting ads for being pregnant. She didn't know she was pregnant, but she was pregnant because the algorithms figured out she was pregnant before she did. Okay. So, yeah, so the news feed is tailored to how you interact with Facebook. It used to be sorted chronologically, not anymore. It's trying to suggest things that will get you engaged, and a lot of times that is polarizing stuff, things that will set you off and make you angry, and not a better person, right? Yeah, it was like, she's like looking up like anti-vomiting, meds and things like that, and the algorithm's like, oh, you're pregnant, So, yeah, there's all sorts of various privacy concerns. Like, obviously, it's watching my location all times. It's watching everyone's location all times. And if you're just in proximity with each other, it's like, hey, you should become friends with this dude. And that's a little worrisome, Facial recognition, they just announced yesterday they're deleting the facial recognition database for 1 billion people. So we can actually probably cross that one off. Facebook bowed to public pressure, and they had the largest database of people's faces in the world, and they actually just erased it yesterday. So that's pretty important. When you tag friends on Facebook, now Facebook knows about your friends, even if your friends don't use Facebook. Think about it. If you enter, or if you enter your friend's phone number into your phone, now Google knows where your friend is. If you enter your friend's address into your phone, now Google knows where your friend lives. They don't even have to use it. Think about it. Let's say you're a privacy nut. And you don't share your phone number, your address with anyone. It doesn't matter. If your friends know where you live, they can enter your name, your address, your phone number, and now Google knows where you live, even if you don't. The only way you can actually have a private life today is what a friend of mine does, and he tells nobody what his phone number is. He tells nobody what his address is. He works for Adobe as an IP lawyer, and he doesn't tell anyone anything about him. He uses burner phones to contact us. So if you want to meet up with him in Vegas, he's like, call this burner phone. And he talks to you once on it. Okay, I'll be there on this day at this time. I'll meet you up at New York at the gift shop here. And he throws the phone away. So that's it. I have no idea where the dude lives. I know where his mom lives. I've been to that house in Orange County. I have no idea where the dude lives. It's in Bay Area somewhere. Like, think about it. And the reason why he did that was because he worked as a lawyer, an intellectual property lawyer in the Bay Area, and he's like, oh damn, wow, this is horrible. And so he went completely off the grid as a result of it. But that's way too much effort. Like, I want to have people come over to my house and play board games with me and stuff like that, and all they have to do is enter like Google Maps. All right, type in Kearney's address. Boom. Now they know where I am. So the NSA scoops up all the data that it can, and supposedly it's all masked. Like, the NSA is only supposed to spy on foreign nationals. Everything in American citizens, it removes the name from it. But all you have to do is type in a thing, and it shows your name. So the NSA has its massive database on all Americans. The FBI can request what's called they can use a national security letter, and they can go to the library and say, I want to see all the books that Ashley checked out, and you can't tell her about it. And so they can do data requests on you to Google, to Facebook, Insta, and they can scoop up data on you. They can dump your whole account to the FBI, and they will not notify you. So, does he at least talk to you? Does he sound like a spy? No, he's just off the grid. He just has seen what the Silicon Valley is doing as far as privacy goes. And so he just lives a very, like, he's actually trying to be private in today's day and age, and it is really, really hard to do so. Pay cash for everything. Don't use any smartphones, just use an old flip phone, So, imagine getting kidnapped and see a Facebook message pop up, seeing if you want to be friends with it. Yeah, it probably would. That's just how it works. Yeah, probably would. Be a nice way to get their identity, I guess, right? Like, like, who was that masked guy that kidnapped me? Pull up your Facebook. Oh, you spent 2 weeks with this person. All right, send that to the FBI. Yeah. That wasn't very cash money of you. That's funny. So, yeah, there's a lot of these concerns, and that's kind of what we're having, this conversation that we're going to have in the class on the discussion boards. It's the same conversation that's happening at the national level. And again, the question of like, how much should the government regulate this kind of stuff? That has its own issues, because like the government is not great with your privacy either. You know what I mean? Like that was the whole Edward Snowden thing that came out about 7 years ago, was that the head of the NSA went in front of the Senate, Senator Wyden from Oregon, said, "Are you collecting? Are you spying on Americans?" And he says, "No." And Snowden's like, "The hell we're not." And he was an NSA contractor, and so he stole a bunch of information on what the NSA is doing. He goes abroad, he leaks the data, and has been unable to return to America ever since, even though, you would think he's like a whistleblower or something. Nope, he's hiding out in Russia right now because America wants to, disappear him, basically. So, and that was under Obama, and then Trump did nothing about it, and now Biden's done nothing about it. He's, Snowden's still stuck in Moscow. So, that's funny. So, it's not like the U.S. is great about privacy. It's not like the U.S. Government has a really stellar track record at like preserving people's, personal identification. Maybe they just don't want the competition. I don't know. Like, I don't have any good answers for you on this. It's actually a really big, complicated issue. So erase the past self. Yeah, in the European Union, they have a right to be forgotten, where you can contact Google and say like, erase all the data you have on me. Like that's a thing in the European Union. You can contact Facebook and you're like, purge all information you have on me, please. That said, whether or not the companies comply with the privacy laws is another matter. Google and Facebook routinely get hit by large fines for not. Here in California, we have a data privacy law that, at least a year ago, one of my friends came on here with me, and we went through all these major websites and found that none of them were complying with the privacy laws. Could have changed in the last year, I don't know. But, yeah, at least as of a year ago, nope, none of them were. So, I made 2 separate Instagram accounts. The new one I made suggests an old friend's mom, like it knew my friends from your old account, yeah. Yeah, sure. You guess you go to Europe now? Yeah, it's not like Europe is a utopia anyway. Like, Europe has its own issues. So, it's, where are you going to go? China? Where are you going to go? India? Where are you going to go? Japan? Like, every place has its own issues, Like, in my Japanese class, a lot of people wanted to go to Japan because all they knew about Japan was from anime. And like, oh, look at how great this country is. It's just, schoolgirls sitting around waiting for subway ride. I don't know, like, and there's giant monsters and stuff, and it's not. It's real life, It's got issues. It's got one of the highest debt ratios of any major company, maybe the highest debt ratio. And so they just don't have enough money to, pay for stuff a lot of times. So, all right, see you guys. Yeah, so we'll pick this up. We'll pick this up next time. All right. Goes to Japan, no subtitles. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of great things about Japan too. Don't get me wrong; it's a very safe country and stuff. All right. I will see you guys on Friday. Peace out.